I'm super excited to finally have my hands on the 3 brand new trial decks for the new Vanguard season will+Dress. I'm also excited to be able to have gotten them on release day, as these are fantastic products for beginners to the game, as these decks are tailored to teaching you the game, and also have some fun contents for you to start building out the deck a bit differently and testing different ideas, just kind of getting you really well started out with Vanguard. Unfortunately, though, these decks have been so hyped up and anticipated that they are pretty overcosted right now. I still think they're a phenomenal pickup, but do beware, your stores might be selling them for upwards of $35 when, if you pre-order them, most likely they're around $16. So just for context though, my local game store was selling the Skyfall Executioner, the Youthberk one, for $35, the Michiru Hazama, Demonic Jewel Dragon of the Four Flames, for $30, is a little less than that, and then the Ura Hanayama, Bandmaster of Blossoming Bonds, for about $24. And online, I've kind of seen these two kind of going for about the same price, but the Urara going for about $20 usually. And that's just because it is the weakest of the two. So just a fair warning if you're trying to get into it, these are a bit expensive. I don't know if they will trend down. I think more likely they'll just be bought out. But that being said, though, I still think it is worth picking up at least one of these, whichever one you think is the coolest, if you want to give Vanguard a try. So with all that being said, let me actually get into unboxing all of these. So these are actually new kinds of packaging for these sort of products. Before, we've always had them in kind of cardboard boxes, but for this one, they decided to do it a bit differently, and they actually have it in this plastic wrapping. They kind of have like the Bushy Road. Let's see if I can get here. With the product logo. The first trial deck for Standard, actually, since all last year was the start decks and some special ones. Advertise the bonus PR inside. And nothing much else to say about it. It's just all plastic surrounding the actual product. So actually, let me get that open real quick. So now we have the actual box, and it's actually pretty cool. It does double as a deck box. It's not an amazing deck box, but it's... Oh, actually, that's the front side. This one's definitely serviceable, especially for new players, just to protect their cards. So I do like that feature, as it minimizes on some of the waste and actually lets this be usable as well. So you got the nice print there that is the Aurora trial deck. And of course you got Lianorn right in the front. On the side, these are some cardboard inserts that just give you information. So like, what is Vanguard? At the very top here, who is Aurora? Who is Lianorn? And then just explain the nation is Stoicheia. So that's pretty cool. Just some more. You all can pause it to read if you want. I'll read that on my own later. And then the back is just showing off that it is the trial deck with a fun little slogan with Ura and Lianorn on the back. Just Cardfight Vanguard logo, barcode, because of course you need that. The side here kind of gives you some of the details of what's in the deck, the pre-constructed 50-card set, expansion pack, of 12 cards, play sheet, first guide, and some fighters coins. And just kind of shows you off the pack as well as the playmat. And then thankfully they also do include the code for the, looks like the card list here, and just some general information. I'm sure all these will have it. And then the bottom is just some more just general information, as they do. So really cool packaging. I actually really like it. But let's actually bust into this. So simple little latch to get it open, hence why the plastic was around. And let's just get out the contents. So of course got the deck here. And let's just pull out the entire cardboard insert. And of course this can be used as the deck box. I'm sure you can keep in the cardboard insert for the put the cards back in, but if you start sleeving your cards, which I do recommend, as they will stay in better condition for longer, and it's actually required for tournament play, you can just take out the cardboard insert and just slip in the box and it should be good. So that's pretty cool. Let's stick that in the back there. Cardboard insert is just all the stuff we've kind of been looking at already. So pretty easy to go through that. And then all the coins here. I actually haven't seen this yet. So front trigger, and you got a few other ones. It looks like it's just a general sheet, so I imagine it's the same for all of them, where you just have all the characters with like the front triggers, as well as just 2 for draw, 2 for crit, 2 for heal. And the back also kind of shows it off, but in a more muted color. Use these for trigger checks and damage checks, places on you that have increased power. So it makes sense why that they want to use the fronts, or have more for the fronts. Do the fronts correspond? They do. I feel like it's a bit of a missed opportunity to make these double-sided. So, I mean, yeah, make them double-sided so you can have like all the fronts also double for some more triggers, and you can maybe make these ones maybe more the triggers, or even just some more fronts, just so you can kind of double these up. that's a bit of a missed opportunity. But still pretty good for starting players, and it's also nice that they include more fronts as it applies to the whole front row. So the idea is that since you have 3 front row, you have 2 sets of fronts and then 2 sets of heals, crits, and draws. And also the fact that they're themed after all the different characters, pretty cool. I'll pop these out on my own time as well, as I don't want to try. Actually, I don't know if I'll pop them out. I have other ways to keep track of it. But I'll do that on my own time because I don't want those full pieces running around right now. So let's see. You've got, looks like the start guide here. I probably won't be able to get it all in the camera just based on my setup. But it just looks like it's just going over the general rules. Yeah, it's got a lot of general rules information. Super easy first guide, just about all the rules. You can kind of only see the bottom part, but you can see like them explaining the playmat. At the top is the unit power, and then on the back, more stuff like this whole thing's about like persona ride, if you can't see that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then of course they have to mention, give your deck even more power up with the new booster set, Blazing Dragon Reborn, where you can find Grand March Full Bloom Lianorn, which I will explain when I go over the deck. So pretty neat there. Definitely great for beginners. If you're already accustomed to Vanguard, these are just kind of cool to see how they try to explain it, if you care about the thing like I do. So pretty neat there. And let me see if I can show off the playmat, as this is kind of the prettiest thing. Okay. Actually has a lot of explanation on there, which sure kind of takes away from the artwork, but I'm kind of fine with that. Just simply because it's great for new players and super useful to help them explain here. Let me actually pick up the webcam and zoom out a little bit so you can kind of get the whole view of it. Just nice playmat. Just kind of have it propped up here. Don't know. Fortunately, with my setup, don't have enough space to just set it down. I mean, as you can see, my blessed favor here is being cut off. And the back, ooh, actually, I really like this. So you have the, I'll have to show this off. So you have the back that I showed you, which has all the tips and tricks, or not tips and tricks, all the rulings on it that can help a new player. But once you've kind of mastered it, you actually have this nice full art of Aurora and Lianorn that you can use instead once you don't need all that extra text, reminder text on there. So you can just play the really pretty playmat. I actually really like that feature. I didn't know that they came like that. So that's a neat surprise. All right, so moving on from there, I have the promo pack, or the expansion pack and the promo off to the side here, but I actually want to go over the deck first. So just this has been pretty standard, just a clear plastic bit holding it together. And we can just get into the cards. So of course, the focus of this deck, if the camera will focus, is the Bandmaster of Blossoming Bonds, Lianorn. So this one, so like all these decks, I think an important thing to understand is that unlike previous like trial products, these cards aren't actually, you can use them in the main decks, but they're actually getting better versions in the main set, which is the first time they've done that. But these cards actually work with it. As with the Persona Ride mechanic, of course, you want to write copies of itself on top, but the nice thing is all of them have this continuous skill that when they're wrote upon by the main set grade 3, you still get Persona Ride. So I do really like that feature, as it also allows these decks to get something that only one other deck in Overdress right now can get, and that's they can technically run more copies of Persona Ride than the normal 3. So that's pretty cool. But Lianorn's main focus is its second skill here. This skill is also on the main set card. Auto Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks, you can Soul Blast 1, discard 1 card from hand, and boost with all of their units in the back row that have boost, or that are stand and have boost. If you boost with 3 or more units, this unit gets drive +1 to make up for that discard. And also at the end of battle, you choose 2 of your back row rear guards and stand them, so they can still boost your rear guards. So this Vanguard just becomes huge and triple drive, which is really powerful. And then, like all the other trial deck bosses, they have a continuous rearguard skill that gives them 5,000 power under some condition. In this case, it is if Lianorn is being boosted. Typically, you don't want to call these to rearguard, so they're not very useful, and it's this skill that gets replaced for the main set, just for a better skill. So that is worth noting there, that this one is technically an inferior version of the one from the main set, but at the same time, it isn't a completely dead card, as you can run this in your ride line and run 4 copies of the main set, or the booster set Lianorn, so you have 4 copies of Persona Ride. And you can't do it the other way, because the main set one doesn't have a continuous skill giving it the Bandmaster Blossoming Bonds name, so that is of note as well. So still pretty cool card. I do like that you do have that flexibility, but still, I really like this artwork as well. Just a bit of a shame that most likely you're going to be replacing it unless you want to run the Persona rides. But I've kind of harped on that enough. Let's actually move on to, oh, actually they just listed that way. So you of course have the hollow one, which I'll set to the side, and then you just have your other 3 copies of it just in your common foiling. So quite nice. That's pretty standard for most trial decks. You just get 1 hollow and the rest are in common. So nothing much to say there. And then here's the first one where we see this really being a starter product for new players, is that the grade 2 of the ride deck here has, instead of its normal effect, it has text explaining the rules for how the ride deck works as well. So that's kind of nice. They do give you the one with the effect in the expansion pack, but it is nice for new players just kind of having them on the cards. And I guess these are kind of fun mementos to put in your binder or wherever you store your cards. Just say, oh, look what Vanguard did. So 1 copy of her. The grade 1 of the ride line, Gracia here, also has that, just about the ride deck. And then same thing with the grade 0, which is Corfi. So nothing too much to say about these cards until I get to their actual effects. Moving on to the rest of the deck, this is now the main deck. Well, these 3 would be in the main deck as well. But the other main deck cards, we have a grade 3 Groovy Dragon when it attacks a Vanguard from rearguard circle. If your back goes 3 or more rearguards, you counterblast 1, and it gets 10,000 power until end of that battle. So a big beater, 23k, definitely shouldn't be scoffed at. Pretty good for a trial deck, honestly, as numbers are pretty important in these. But past the trial deck, playing with the trial decks, counterblast for 10k isn't very much. But still, cool artwork. I do like the artwork of sort of like the band and plant dragons and such. So I do like that about this deck. So I'll put that off to the side. Then you get this grade 2 here, Upbeat Dragon. When it intercepts, if your back row is 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards, it gets 10,000 shield. So a 15k interceptor at 4 copies. Great way to kind of show off intercept to new players as well. Again, these cards are really tailored to teaching new players. So I love the artwork. Unfortunately, I will say, past just playing with the trial decks, these won't be that great. It would be better if it was when put on Guardian Circle, but I understand why they did it that way. Then Brew Slash here, it's just a vanilla, so it doesn't actually have an effect. So you can technically run this one in the main set, but it just explains what intercepting actually is for new players. So I do kind of like how they're using these vanilla slots to kind of be able to teach new players what the different skills that cards have, like the icons and such, without having to actually take up a slot with an effect. So good use of those, since those are definitely being replaced anyway. As you can see here, like the Upbeat Dragon, it has 10k and an effect and still 5k shield. So there's no reason why you should run a card with the same stat line without an effect. Then we move on to Yielding Elf here. If your Vanguard's grade 3, once per turn you can counterblast 2 to draw a card. A bit overcosted, but drawing card's never bad. So again, a good card for trial deck, and since we only really have the Groovy Dragon so far to counterblast, that's not too bad, as I think paying counterblast 2 to get an extra card will actually be better than plus 10,000 in some cases. And then here we've got Biara showing off the boost icon. This one actually does have an effect that we'll get to in the expansion pass. So nothing much to say, more to say about it. It is nice that they do explain it as well. Then we got our PGs. I'm so happy they still kept with the 4 PGs. Just a central card in Vanguard that once they started adding them, I was so happy even when there were 2 of, and thankfully for a while now they've been putting 4 in there. So good. Then we have our first 3 copies, Knight of Pure Theodore, not Theodore. So this one of note only has 6k power. The standard power for grade 1s are 8k, but when you discard it from your hand during your ride phase, you may call it to rearguard circle. So the cards in the ride deck actually explain that you must discard a card from your hand to ride it from the ride deck, and this one pretty much just says that if you do so, you get to bring it back on board, which is honestly a phenomenal effect. Unfortunately, since its power is a bit low, it really isn't much value and it doesn't do anything else than that. If it had 8k power, I would actually say consider running this in some of your decks as just getting a free grade 1 on board for just doing, like, discarding for your ride deck, which you always do, is really good. And then the triggers are my favorite part. 4 of the Melodia Palmera, the cutest crit trigger out there, instant 4 of in whatever deck I'm running that needs the vanilla crit triggers. Simple Hamster, another cutie. Standard draw triggers. 4 fronts with the Prominent Elf, and then 4 Flowery Tone for your heal triggers. So pretty good. I'm actually happy that unlike the start decks, they actually give you 4 of each trigger, because that was the problem. You only actually got 3 fronts in the start decks that came out over a year ago. So I'm really happy that they decided to give us 4 copies of each trigger instead of shortchanging us on one. It really didn't matter for play, but for me, I do like being able to get as many playsets as possible, and triggers are one of those that you do want a playset of. So let me just pack up all these cards again. So here's some nice kind of just wording on it, and I think that's, yeah. Once you're used to the game, power up your deck with these cards from the expansion pack. And each expansion pack contains 1 parallel foil card. And that's important. These will be great for like trading for stuff as well, especially if you can get your hands on a regular foil of it for some of the cards. But if it's one that you get multiple copies of, these parallel foils are actually worth quite a bit in some cases. So pretty neat that they give it to you, and I do like it since this is designed to help you learn the game. Part of the game is also being able to replace cards in your deck to upgrade it, and the fact that they give that to you in the start product is, I think, a huge step in the right direction for teaching new players how to play the game. Because deck building is something that I think kind of I shouldn't say goes unrecognized, but it's something, you're so focused on learning the rules when you first start on the game that you're not really concerned about deck building, and it can get kind of overwhelming once you start getting into it because you haven't been prepped for it. At least that's from my personal experience. So the fact that Vanguard's also really focused on teaching players how to build decks, I think is really, really nice. Hence why I was happy to see like the 10k vanillas, despite them being objectively worse, it just gives them like an easy card to replace to start thinking, oh, if I can have a 10k, 5k shield grade 2 with an effect, why would I run without one? So I really like that. So let's see what we got. So we have Biara here. This one's not the foil, I don't think. No, it's not. It kind of has a bit of a gloss to it. That just might be my lighting, though. So BR was the one that was replaced with the boost icon, or just the boost explanation on it. Let's see if the card will focus. But this Library Rhythm Biara, which we do get at 4 copies, or 3 copies, which means that's my holo, isn't it? Is that at the back? No, it's not. Okay. I think that means it's my holo, but we'll get to that in a second. This will not focus for me. But Biara here, even though it's not focusing, its effect is that when the attack this unit boost hits a Vanguard, you can put a grade 2 or less card from your hand and soul to draw 1. And I really do like this effect, because it can, with Lianorn's effect, you can boost with it twice, meaning you've got 2 chances to get off that skill, and be able to put a card from hand into soul fuels Lianorn's Soul Blast effect, as well as the fact that it draws you a card to replace that card means you just cycle from your hand. So say like you have the 5k draw trigger, which is usually not very useful in hand as it's not a good card on board and it's really low shield value, you can actually put into soul with Biara's ability and draw a brand new card that might be more useful to call out to your board or guard with. So that one's really not going to show up, so I'll just set those aside. Only 3 of them. I know you get 4, so I think that is the holo. There we go, I got to focus. So Clapping Dragon here. When this unit is placed on a front row rearguard circle from hand, if your back row is 3 or more units, you can counterblast 1 to draw a card, and if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets 10,000 power till end of turn. So this one is actually a pretty good card, and I see Lianorn lists after the booster set run this, because a counterblast to draw 1 and gain 10k is very good. And of note, we have the Groovy Dragon from the main deck here that only gains 10,000 power. But the big difference is this one's on play, so you only really get to use it once, while this one's whenever it attacks. So there is a difference there. So while this card does seem a bit better at first glance, there is a bit of difference in timing of the effects, which changes how many times you can actually use it, which is of note. But in general, just getting that extra draw, it's worth just only being able to use it once. So only 1 copy. Oh, that's what they do. So yeah, I don't know which one I have, because I should be getting 2 copies of this in the expansion pack. So it's just hiding it till the very end. So next up we have Olvaria here, the over trigger. So notably they did exclude it from the main deck, which I actually do kind of like that they did that for teaching the game, as this card is kind of nuts in what it does. So once you're used to the game, you can include it in and start playing standard, more actualized to its full power. So you can choose which trigger you also want to remove for it, though definitely don't remove a heal for this card. Then the final new card from here is Fun March, an order card, the first order card of this set. It's a grade 3, you play with Soul Blast 1, and all your grade 1 or less rearguards gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn, so just buffing your back row, which will be really nice to make your Lianorn swing for huge, and your rearguard columns. Soul Blast cost is a bit much. You're going to be wanting to get those BR effects off in Persona Ride to be able to fuel all this, and I'll explain that why in a second, but still, pretty cool card to help out the deck, Don't know how much use it really hasn't seen much use past that, because you're pretty much discarding a card and soul blasting one to give 15k to your board, which isn't the best effect, honestly. But moving on. So here's Rectina, Brilliant Tune Rectina from the Ride line with her proper effect. When rode upon by a Lianorn, which means the trial deck Lianorn or the main set Lianorn, you can soul blast one and call a gray one or less from your drop to rearguard circle. So again, using up a soul, that's kind of what's pointing out the soul. Lianorn needs to use a soul, your Fun March needs to use a soul, Rectina needs to use a soul, and you only have so much without effects that soul charge. And honestly, just having Biara there to hit and to soul charge on hit isn't the most reliable form of it. So you do need to be careful about your soul. But also has a rearguard effect that if it's in the back, if your back row is 3 or more rearguards, this unit gets a boost. It does include itself. So you only get one of this. So you really only use it if you're calling it from drop, which this version of the deck does not have. You do have cards that can do that in Stoicheia. So of note, this can be a booster if you're running it in your, if you soul blast it. But you really, there's just better cards to run in the main set, because why run this that can get boost when you can run BR with its on-hit effect? And there are other cards that also gain power, so even if you say it's a 10k booster, there are cards that can get larger than this. So there's that. Then we have the grade 1 Gracia. What is it? Budding of Pleasant Sound Gracia. Gracia? Gracia? I'm thinking of how they pronounce it in the sub version is Gracia. I'm sure in English they pronounce it Gracia. Haven't actually watched the full episode yet. But her ability says that when she's rode upon by Rectina, you may call her to rearguard circle. So again, it takes away from your soul because you're calling her from soul. But at the same time, it does make a good booster as when it boosts Vanguard. It gets 5,000 power. So ideally, you would call this behind your Vanguard because boosting your rearguard doesn't get that power. I do think it would be better if it did, but I understand why they don't since it does have that ride line effect. But putting her just behind your Vanguard means that these two on your grade 2 turn will be a 23k swing, which is actually huge for grade 2, and a lot of times your opponent won't guard it, meaning you can push some early damage. So I do like it for that fact of the effect, but again, they're just better cards, hence why it's only run in the run as a 1 in the ride deck, as they're just better cards you can throw on rearguard circle, but pretty good for the ride line purposes. Then, of course, the grade 0, which I did not get in holo. So I did not get any of the ride line holo. Those are usually the more expensive ones, but that is fine. Nothing remarkable about its effect. Is the same as every starter, and because none of the cards reference this card's exact name, you can run any starter you want. Then, so I did not get Biara, as that's my 4th Biara, but I did get the Clapping Dragon holo. That's nice. Her foiled, not necessarily holo. So it's a trial deck rare. So that's pretty nice. And then, of course, just Fun March in normal. So pretty card here. You end up with the foil Lianorn and then one additional one. So I don't know how much this is going for on TCG Play right now. I know these are usually the more expensive ones, but at the same time, I do want my playset of Clapping Dragon. I do have a second one coming in, so I can get my 4 Clapping Dragon and my 4 Fun March. So I won't be selling this one off, but hey, still pretty cool to see. Looks nice. It's nice that they do include these in the deck, just to kind of get a taste of the different rarities of Vanguard. So really closing, actually, I should have one more card to stick out. The promo card. Really nice that they include one of these in all the decks, as this is super good. It's going to take up one of your PG slots, and it only helps decks like the Lianorn against some of the older decks, which is really nice. I'm not really going to go too much into this effect here, as I kind of want to focus on the cards in this set itself, as this is more for higher level play. But just know when you're ready, just swap it in. It'll be pretty good here. Sometimes it can be a free PG because normally they cost a discard. So, though, not going to bore with all the technicality as that gets into more explaining some of the other decks, which that will come in due time as you learn the game. So, I think the final notes I have for this deck here is that I kind of pointed out how the ride line's a bit expensive here. And honestly, you're probably going to switch out this entire ride line come the main set. As I said, the other Lianorn is so much better, and there's just better ride line targets for it. So I do think this is actually the weakest of the decks, with only the Clapping Dragon and the Biara being of note in this deck. But even then, honestly, they're not the most insane cards. But still, if you're interested in this aesthetic, it's a great way to kind of get started, get a feel for the deck to see if you like it, and then possibly upgrade over with the new cards from set 6. And I do know they actually get this deck gets some pretty good cards in set 7 as well. So let me clean this all up and move on to the next trial deck. So the next one I'm going to open up is the second trial deck for Mitru Hazama, the Demonic Jeweled Dragon of the Four Flames. One of the ones I'm personally excited for the most, as I love the artwork on this one. It's a bit blurry, but it'll be a bit clear once I take off this plastic. Same thing at the top, just says it's the other trial deck. So let me get this thing open. So the box, pretty much the same as the Uro one, just with the different branding, as this one explains. Still explains what Vanguard is, Mitru, Drajeweled, what Dark States is as a nation. More promotional on the back. Souls of the four colors shall seize all. The future shall rumble with these hands. Really cool there. And then, of course, just explain what it comes with. Pretty much the same exact thing, just with Drajeweled. So let's get this thing open. Excited to see which holo I get in this one especially. So, same exact things as before. Same exact thing as I thought. Nothing more to say there. And then you have the start guide, and as you can kind of see here, it's showing off one of the cards in here. So it's actually themed for Drajeweled instead of Lianorn, which is quite nice. I'm not going to open all of that. And though I will show off the playmat, as this one will be different, at least on the back. It does have the same front side to teach the players the game and has a ton of the reminder rules as well as the phases on there. But the back, I am super excited to see this. I love this Drajeweled artwork. I actually prefer it more than the main set one. All right. Up here. Look at that. That looks awesome with Mitru on there. So this one, as I said, is the one I've been personally the most excited for. But of note here, this is the only one that does not actually get its other grade 3, the main deck grade 3, in the booster set 6. It actually comes out in booster set 7. So do have to wait a little bit for it, unfortunately. I want to see if the note on here says I have to wait till set 7. So this one had a lot of hype, but unfortunately it really wasn't played because, well, because you pretty much were told you have to wait like 2 months to get it. Yeah, it says you have to get the main set Drajeweled from set 7, Raging Flames Against the Emerald Storm. So that comes out in December, so don't have to wait too long for it, but still have to wait. But just means I get to enjoy some of the other decks beforehand. So let's get into the actual cards first. So Drajeweled is actually considered the best of the trial decks, and it's easy to see why. It has probably one of the strongest abilities of all of them, even though it doesn't seem, sometimes it won't seem like it. It's really, really good. And I actually do prefer this artwork over the set 7 one. So of course it has that Persona Ride clause as Lianorn did, not going to go over that. Its condition for the 5k is that you have to Soul Blast 4 or more, and that is more useful. It's useful because of its main effect, that when it attacks a Vanguard, from Vanguard Circle, you may Soul Blast 4 cards with different grades, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards until end of turn, increase or decrease its power to 1. And if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets a critical. So this makes sure that your opponent has to guard with more cards when it attacks. And the really cool thing is you can actually swing with the rear guard first, and if your opponent checks a trigger, you can nullify that power with this effect. So it's really strong, and just it's better than a plus 10k to your front row in most cases, which is saying a lot. So really, really powerful card here, honestly. And it's unsurprising when people were just playing with these trial decks. This one was coming out on top, as all you need to do is get 4 cards with different grades. And as long as your cards in the deck allow you to do that, this just puts on a ton of offensive pressure. So that one comes in holo, of course, so that's really nice. Throw in the back there. And then, of course, you get your 3% copies for the main deck. So just like with the Lianorn deck, you have the ride line that explains like the ride line that explains like the ride deck and riding up with Jewel Neil, Jewel Core Dragon, and Julius Draco Kid. So nothing much to say about those. So let's get into the rest of the deck here. We get the Truculence Raider. I think that's how that's pronounced. Yeah, Truculence. So let's see if it'll focus here on the effect. So this, similar to the Upbeat Dragon, I believe it was called from the Uro deck. There we go. Is one of those cards that gives itself power plus 10k for a counterblast, but it needs that your Vanguard be Drajeweled. But this one actually has a slight difference in its effect, in that at the end of battle you put it to Soul. And normally that isn't great as you're losing one of your rear guards, but the fact that it gets you a grade 3 to Soul to fuel your Drajeweled effects actually doesn't make it half bad, as it's just an easy way to make sure you can use Drajeweled the next turn. especially if you don't have Persona Ride in hand to get that grade 3 in Soul. So not too bad. Of course, 4 copies of that. We've got our Interceptor here again, Icicle and Izer. This was actually released in the the start decks about a year and a half ago. So again, just a vanilla that explains Intercept. Good use of that space. Then we got Mystic Accordionist. When this card is discarded from hand during your ride phase, you may put this card into Soul. So I kind of like this one better than the grade 1 version from the Aurora deck, because it is a 10k card. Even though you don't call it for free, you do get into Soul, which is really nice for Drajeweled. So normally when you're just having to discard one for ride line, getting a little bonus off of it is never bad. So that's not terrible, since at worst it's just a 10k attacker, and at best you just put to Soul during your ride line. So I do like this card, and as you'll kind of see with these cards, I see with this deck, I think the cards in here support what Drajeweled wants to do a lot better, but it's also a lot more straightforward what Drajeweled wants to do than I think. Well, I shouldn't say straightforward. Lianorn's pretty straightforward, but what your supporting cards need to do is a lot more straightforward, and you just need to get the 4 different grades in Soul. So grade 1 here, Avid Heaper. When this unit boosts a grade 2 or greater, you may Soul Charge 1. Just a real simple Soul Charge effect is never bad. So good card for the trial deck here, just really supporting Drajeweled. Then we get Direful Doll. Oh, how Christian? That is a really weird spelling. Jurston? Made the case silent. But it's just like, this is just some cards will have the same effect, and this one's just the Counterblast 2 if your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater to draw a card, just like we saw in not the Drajeweled, the Lianorn deck, and only at 3 copies as well. And here we have the one who calls upon the Raging Thunder, Fergress. So this one's just to explain boost. Just like BR, it does have an effect from the expansion pack that we'll go over. We got our 4 PGs, already talked about those. Great that they included them. We got our 4 crits here. We got our 4, make sure you can see them, 4 draws here, 4 fronts, and 4 heals. Nothing too notable about the artworks for me here. I mean, they're Vanguard art, so they all look great. I'm just more drawn to the cute, fluffy Corgi crit trigger than all these, but still, it's really, again, it's just really great. You get all the triggers at 4 copies, and you can just throw in the overtrigger whichever one you don't want. So let me clean up so we can get into the expansion pack. Of course, you get your Elementaria Sanctitude again, so I'm just going to set that to the side. And let's get into the pack here. Let's see, there's just some basic information on the back here. All right, so let's start going through it. So first we start off with the Fergress here. With its actual effect, it's actually a really neat card that I've seen people in Japanese lists with the new Drajeweled coming out set 7, since they just got that set a week ago. I see some of the lists running it. So its effect, if it will focus here, so its effect is when it's placed on rearguard circle, as long as your Vanguard's are Drajeweled, so it works with both this one and the main set one, you may Soul Blast 1, choose a card from your drop and put into your Soul, and this unit gets 2,000 power till end of turn. So this is actually a really good card, as you might think, oh, I don't want to Soul Blast because my Drajeweled needs a Soul Blast. But this one actually fixes your Soul. So if you have multiple grades and you're missing one, you can easily swap cards out from your Soul pretty much. And this getting 2k means that it's helping Drajeweled hit better numbers, and really just whatever would boost better numbers. So it's only on place though, but a lot of times that's fine, as this deck isn't looking to go very long. It's just looking to beat down your opponent as fast as possible, and just getting that extra 2k to hit slightly better numbers for a booster is honestly phenomenal. And again, that grade correcting, because once you do that first Soul Blast for Drajeweled, you'll have all the grades you need in your drop zone, and this card will always be useful. So, of course, you get the 3 ones, just to not give away if you got the holo or not. Then our 2 ofs are Ultrasound Syri. Yep. One place on rearguard circle, Counterblast 1, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose a card from one of them, put into your hand, or to your Soul, excuse me, shuffle your deck, and if your Soul has 4 more cards with different grades, draw a card. So again, just a really nice card. Be able to look at top 3 and pretty much tutor out whatever grade you need is phenomenal, especially when you'll have grades 0 through 2. So, sorry, 2, 1, and 0. So you're just missing a grade 3. So if you have one of these in hand, you can easily search out your grade 3 on your first turn if you find it in the top 3 and then get a draw on top of it. So great value for a counterblast, just setting up your Drajeweled, but also drawing you a card. Can't ask for a better card, honestly. And is actually one of the reasons why that I picked up 2 of these decks, and I recommend anyone who can pay for it to pick up 2, because these cards to get at 4 copies is very important. Then we get Friend of the Netherworld, Ling. This is another card I've seen people using still in their Drajeweled decks. And this card says, when it's placed on Rearguard Circle, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, choose one from among them, put in a soul, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck. So just a great way to tutor out more grades into your soul. Top 2 isn't like a huge search, but sometimes just something super efficient and costless like this is honestly enough to be able to help you out. And since this deck just needs to set those 4 soul, any way it can do it is very appreciated. And the fact that this one's free is actually why it's seeing more use, as the Drajeweled deck actually becomes pretty counterblast heavy once it gets its proper support. So only one of this, just like Ultrasound Syri, that's the other reason to pick up 2 of these so you could get your 4 copies, because honestly these 2, especially compared to like the Order and Clapping Dragon from the Ura trial deck, these 2 are just light years better. It's the card quality in this this trial deck here is honestly insane. Of course, we got the one Albaria. Now we get into the ride line. So this one's not hollow. Julneil's full effect is that when this unit's attack hits a Vanguard, you soul charge 1. That's on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. Not an amazing effect on Rearguard Circle, hence why you only need the 1 copy. But on Vanguard Circle, that's actually quite nice if you can get a booster behind it, because your opponent's likely not to block it on your grade 2 turn, and you just get an extra soul charge for it, just an extra chance to see all 4 grades in your soul. It also has the effect that when rode upon by a Drajeweled, you make them soul charge 1, and if your soul has 3 or more cards with different grades, you draw a card. And pretty much you'll always have this effect set up unless you soul blast or remove cards from your soul. So because when you ride across on top of this, you should have your 0, 1, and 2 in soul to get the +1. So just a soul charge to possibly see your grade 3 in soul for the 4, plus a draw, that's always going to be good. We don't have Jewel Core as hollow, unfortunately. I would have liked that one. This card I really like. So when rode upon by the Julneil here, you get to call it out from soul to Rearguard Circle. And normally that would sound bad, but if you read its second effect, when it attacks or boosts, it gets 5,000 till end of turn, but at the end of that battle, it gets 5,000 till end of that battle, but at the end of that battle, you put into soul. So it pops out to become a really strong attacker or booster. 13k is a phenomenal number, especially on your grade 2 turn. And you just put it back to soul to make sure you get off the Julneil's effect and have it in there for Drajeweled. So really like this card, just gives you an offensive edge. And especially since Drajeweled can gain a crit once your opponent's Vanguard's at grade 3 or greater, it's really nice to have just the extra pressure where you don't have to commit from hand. That way you can try to force your opponent to 4 damage to make Drajeweled super threatening when it swings. So moving on from there, didn't get the starter either. So Julius Draco Kid here, not much to say. Again, you don't need this card. I'll probably be running it because I like its artwork, and it's the Mac with the deck. Then let's see. Did not get Fulgris here. Let's see if it will focus again. There we go. Fulgris here, just our 4th copy. We get the Ultrasonic Syri, so the same slot as the Clapping Dragon that we got hollow, so not bad. I do like that. It's a good card. And then, of course, our 2nd copy of Ling. So quite nice here. So I think I did mention that I did get an extra copy of each of these. I'm still waiting for it from the mail because I got them from 50cards.shop. Not a promotion here. I just really like what Jacob does over there, so more than happy to shout him out here. And also let you all know that if you pre-order through him, a lot of times you can get stuff for cheaper than what the shops are selling. So personally, what I do is, because I do like to get quite a bit of product, is I like to go to pre-order from 50cards.shop, and then I usually go and pick up whatever else I need from the shop. So for example, I picked up one of each of these from the shop, but also one of each from 50 cards, since I knew I wanted to. So moving on to the final one, we've got Rika Kushba, the Skyfall Executioner, probably the most popular one of all 3 of these, and part of that is definitely because the Drajeweled stuff didn't come out in set 6, it came out in set 7, while Youthberk here gets support right away. So let's get this plastic rack off. As nothing else to say, it just explains what the product is. Also, the plastic's super easy to open as it's just taped here and folded up at the bottom. So as long as you can pop the tape, it just slides on right out. So that's really nice that they made it super easy to open. So the box here, love the colors on this one here with, oh, you can see my reflection here. If I hadn't already revealed my face, that would have been a face reveal. So if this will focus, there we go. We've got, of course, you can actually see the light from my webcam reflecting in here. But you've got, of course, explanation of Rika, Youthberk, and what United Sanctuary is, the other nation this is from. Back with the saying, equipment change, will+Dress. Now this is time for the skies to fall. Just kind of tying into Youthberk's lore there. Then, of course, you got the product information, same as all the other ones, just specific to Youthberk and Rika. So let's get this one open. As expected, same sheet. I'm not going to cover too much on that one. This one, the manual should mention that it gets support in set 6 with the new main set Youthberk, which I love that artwork. And that's coming out in Blazing Dragon Reborn. I'll talk about a bit about that at the end of the video when I kind of go over the decks, like final thoughts. Playmat here, let me get it open to show you all, because again, it's just another phenomenal looking one. Let's see if I can do it justice. Yeah. Oop, my open's actually pulling this down. But yeah, that's, get that out of the way. Yeah, really having trouble there, but that's what it looks like. Honestly, the artwork there looks sick. While I do prefer the main set Youthberk art, I do really like the trial deck version on this playmat here, for sure. So everyone was just gushing about the Youthberk art here. I was always personally more drawn to Drajeweled, but I will say Youthberk looks awesome as well. Just bringing out the inner edgelord in all of us. So of course, let's go over the cards here. Once I get that plastic off. Youthberk Proto Arms here. I do like they call it Proto Arms here, like it's a prototype, as opposed to Skyfall Arms, which is the full version. So here, let's see if it'll focus. There we go. So this one says when rode upon, it can be treated as the Youthberk Skyfall Arms. So same thing as the Lianorn and the Drajeweled, but its main effect here is the will+Dress ability. And that is at the end of battle, this unit attacks, you choose up to one card with Revel form in its card name from your hand, write it as stand, and it gets drive -2 till end of turn. So it'll make more sense once you see the Revel forms, but the Revel form in here, but it's just a really powerful way to get a second Vanguard attack, even if it doesn't have drive checks. So it's really just a 4th attack in the deck. Really powerful. And then its contains ability is conditional if you've placed a grade 3 or grade, if your grade 3 or Vanguard was placed this turn. So that's just riding or using the Revel or the will+Dress ability. So really cool. This is one of those effects that it's really dependent on how good the Revel forms are, or dependent on the other cards. But that also makes it super exciting, as that means it technically has limitless potential depending on what Revel forms they actually release, as opposed to like Drajeweled, where you know what value you're getting. So of course you get your 3 Persona Ride copies, your ride line, just explaining it, where you've got Knight of Ardent Light Youth, Determined to Break Away Youth, and Youth following in footsteps. Yeah, Youth. That's a bit redundant. But we come across our first Revel form here, Youthberk Revel form Zest. So its ability is when it's placed on Vanguard Circle by a will+Dress ability, until end of turn it gets power plus 15,000, and if you Persona Rogue this turn, it gains a critical. So really powerful here. Really bonuses, it gives you a benefit if you did Persona Ride. But also the 15k here, making a 28k beater without drive checks, it still makes it really good. And then at the end of your turn, you choose one card, the will+Dress ability from your soul, and ride it as rest. So that way you reset into Youthberk Protofall Arms, because if it didn't, then how are you supposed to Persona Ride? Since Protofall Arms can only be Persona Rode upon can only trigger Persona Ride on itself. So really cool card. We really see the more potential of this with the main set and the other Revel form it gives, but still 4 copies, just a great starting point, as this is certainly a powerful card. Moving along, we have Internalized Mage here. So this one is, once per turn for your Vanguard's Youthberk in its name, you counterblast 2 and it gains 10,000 power. So technically speaking, you can use this turn after turn, but as I kind of discussed, you don't really want to play Counterblast 1 for 10,000 power, so why would you want to play Counterblast 2? So I definitely was very much a weak card in here, but at the same time, if the deck really doesn't Counterblast too much, not too bad. It's better to have somebody use Counterblast on than not. So then we have Knight of Parting Loigre, I think it's how it's pronounced. And just our Intercept Explainer, this one does actually have an effect. You'll see once we get to the pack, and that's just because Keter Sanctuary doesn't actually have a vanilla grade 2. So, still Explain Intercept, the artwork looks pretty cool. Not bad. Stardiness Dragon. Yeah, Stardiness Dragon. I really like the artwork here. Kind of reminds me of... what does it remind me of? I think it's something from Xenoblade 2, honestly. I can't remember what it's called. But still, really cool looking card. This one is what we call like a special interceptor. That's a really old term, but it's pretty much does the same thing. When it intercepts, if you have a Row form card in your soul, it gets 10,000 power. So that means you just need to Row form into Zest, rewrite over it with your Protofall Arms, and you get its effect. It's a pretty easy condition. Not the best, but honestly not bad, especially since between these trial decks, there's no actual way to retire. So you only get 3 of those, interestingly enough. Oh, I know. Well, yeah, that is interesting. I guess they want to give... Oh, because the Loigre has an effect, so I'm assuming that's why. Yeah, actually, because the Lianorn deck got 4 of those. We'll see. So, with the rest of the deck. So, what Header Sanctuary does have is a vanilla grade 1, which is 5k shield, 8k power. This one does not actually have an effect, but just explains boost, which is really nice. 4 PGs as always, nothing more else to say, just nice that you get them as they are crucial. Especially with like Lianorn hitting such big numbers, there's no way you can hard guard that. Then I get Witch of Revocation, Fectil. There we go, Fectil. And this is the grade 1, like in the Lianorn deck, when discard you get to call to rearguard circle. Same thing applies for this card. It's fine. Not amazing. If it was 8k, it would be amazing. Or I shouldn't say amazing, it would be a lot better. But you actually get 4 of these. And that's interesting. I guess they thought that this deck you would really want to be able to get the extra call more so than the Interceptor. But that also makes sense because the will+Dress ability technically just is letting you go -1 as you have to use a card from hand, your Zest, to ride over Youthberk, but you don't actually get a new card in hand. So important note to make there. So I can make sense why they would want you to have 4 of these. So then you get your 4 crit triggers here. Looks awesome with the Shadowy Dragon, the Volitian Dragon, Rigger Dragon. So Volitian Rigger Dragon, Archmia, just a cool little tiger card. Again, just a dark hue to show that Youthberk is our resident edgelord for will+Dress right now, or will+Dress right now. Resolute Mage, bit of a lighter card, but still cool. And then finally, we get the 4 Recuperation Angel. So typical angel for healing. Seems a bit on the nose, but it's fine. So just really like that crit trigger here. Not as cute as the Stoikeo ones, but at the same time, at least they look cooler than the Dark States ones, in my opinion. So let me clean up here, and I will move on to the expansion pack. Of course, Elementary Sanctitude. Always get one of those, so that's nice. Let's get into the pack here with Redka on the front here. So here, let's see if I can break that curse of getting the same holo in each of them, since I always got it as one of the 2 of cards, which isn't bad, but Rideline would be pretty cool, because I am planning on building Youthberk I keep saying Youthberk, because I thought it was that for the longest time. But I'm planning on building Youthberk come set 6, so a Rideline card would be very nice. So let's see. So yeah, Loigray here has the ability that when your Vanguard is placed with the will+Dress ability, you can Counterblast 1, and this unit gets 10k until end of turn. So not the most notable skill here, as I mean, it's definitely better than the Counterblast 2 to gain 10k, but it is situational on it, and honestly, it would be better. It'd be nice if it also drew. So this one feels a bit weak, especially since the Drajeweled deck got a draw card, so interesting there. This one's pretty good, though. Knight of Piercing Cadwalla. This is why I really wanted 2 of this deck. It says that then about this unit attack to Vanguard. If you have 4 more units, you Soul Blast 1, retire this unit, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose a grade 2 or greater unit from among them, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. If you did not reveal, you draw a card. So this just helps you search out your Zests to be able to will+Dress, or it can also help you search out another grade 2 to call next turn, or it can even search out your Persona Rite copies. So I really like this card. It's super versatile, clears up the board, so it's better, like you can get rid of this if your opponent will just be retiring your board anyway. And you really don't have much of a soul problem because you're always getting cards in soul thanks to your will+Dress ability. So really like this card. Get your Olbaria. We do get an order in this deck, a grade 2, Skyfall Fury. You play this with Counterblast 1 if your Vanguard has the will+Dress ability, and you search your deck for a Revel Form Zest, put into your hand, shuffle your deck. So this pretty much acts as it'd be a 5th and 6th copy since you do get 2 of these cards. So quite nice, and if you pick up 2 of these, you'll also have a 7th and 8th. So just a real easy way, because you really want to see your Zests, and you can't really reliably draw into them. So just being able to run out extra copies that searches them is great. It does cost a Counterblast, but it's definitely, I think, a really good use of a Counterblast in the start deck. So we didn't get the grade 2 in Holo, but its proper ability says when it's ruled upon by a unit with a will+Dress ability, which I like how they did that instead of just a Youthberk. So you could technically run this if there's non-Youthberks in the future that have the will+Dress ability. But you Counterblast 1, choose a grade 2 or grade card from your drop, and put it into your hand. So this is nice because your Persona Rides and your Revel Forms don't actually have shield value, so you can discard them in the early game when you don't need them and just add them back with this card. So quite nice. And then from Vanguard, Rearguard Circle, when it's boosted, you Soul Blast 1 and it gets 5,000 power. Not the most useful, but this deck, outside of like Cadwalla, doesn't seem to use too much soul, and you only will end up with 2 Cadwalla unless you buy multiple the 2 decks. So just having that extra ability to make this more threatening on first attack, not too bad. It does need to be boosted though, so you do need to call down a booster, which you don't always want to do, which is of note. But it's nice. It's a nice effect to have. You're really wanting it for that first effect though, for the ride line. Unfortunately, didn't get the grade 1, but this one has 2 effects. Let me read the ride line one first, the second one. When it's read upon by the grade 2 youth, you can Soul Blast 1, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose one Youthberk from among them, put it to hand, or reveal it and put it to hand, or you choose a grade 2 or less from among them and call it to rearguard circle, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So really nice to help you search out your Persona rides and your Revel forms, or at worst, you just get to call another card to board, which you can also throw behind Youth to use its effect. So not too bad there. It does use up a lot of Soul Blast, but being able to push your opponent early isn't always a bad thing. So quite a nice card for that effect. It's really good skill here. And then on top of that, actually back up, it is a bit confusing when you first read it, but it's literally just saying you either add your Youthberk to hand or you just call a grade 2 or less from among them, one or the other. So the abilities on Vanguard rearguard circle, during the battle with the scene attacks, it gets 2,000. That, if it was a booster, it would be, or not booster, if it was a rearguard, it would be relevant as it would be a 10k attacker, which is a good number to hit. But they're just much better cards you can run in your main deck. But as a ride line deck, that 10k or the plus 2k, it comes in use in one scenario. If you're going second and you call an 8k booster behind this, it hits 18k, meaning your opponent will have to guard with 15k to make it a 1 to pass. So that is of note. You can definitely make use of that if need be, so not bad. I have a feeling we're going to get the same exact holo slot for all of these, funny enough. So the grade 1, nothing really to say about it, or grade 0, same as all of them. And let's see, will it be the Cadwalla? Oh, actually, Cadwalla's the next one. Void Gray, glad it's not that one, that's definitely the worst. And it is the Cadwalla. I wonder if it's just how they dispersed the products that they're all ended up at the same holo slot. Because you could get any of these holo as well. So not too bad. I am happy about getting this one holo since I probably will be running it, or at least experimenting with it in my set, or my build of it come the main set release. And of course, we get the other order card. So not bad. I definitely will not complain about that one. So really wrapping up my opening of these 3 trial decks. As I kind of alluded to, I do think Drajeweled is the strongest one, as it has the most straightforward effect and some of the best supporting cards, because it is the most straightforward to support, honestly. So it's definitely the best from these decks, but since it doesn't receive support until December, when we get the main set in 2 weeks, you kind of see it fall off, as everyone really doesn't want to play it until it gets its proper support. Meanwhile, Lianorn and Youthberk do. But that being said, though, Youthberk is definitely the fan favorite, hence why it's the most expensive. Just our Resident Edgelord, if it will focus again. Yeah, our Resident Edgelord, and just a really hype ability in will+Dress, and it ends up being actually a pretty good deck. And while not many cards from the trial deck see play in the main deck outside of the Cadwalla and the ride line, it's still a cool one to pick up just to kind of get your first taste of will+Dress. And then also, you always have the option to run this in your main deck. Most people don't, but you still technically do have the option. It's just because most of the deck does a lot of searching, so you can find your Persona Ride copies pretty easily. And then Lianorn here, this one was big in Japan. People loved this card, but frankly, the deck itself doesn't get good until set 7, so in December when Drajeweled gets its main support, because it's just a 3-attack deck that just makes your Vanguard really big, so your opponent just kind of PGs it. And the support itself isn't that amazing. You kind of see that from the trial deck. It's still a really cool card, and I'm really excited to see what they do with this in the future, because I do think this card has, I wouldn't say it has the most potential. I think Youthberk does, just because its effect is as good as your Revel forms. But I think there's a lot more to explore with this effect, with combining boost effects once we get better boosters with certain effects. As I see this card really being powerful by how you combine different cards with boost skills, and then also being able to then boost rear guards with them as well. So we'll see how much they actually explore that. But my opinion is, if you're wanting power, Drajeweled is the strongest of the trial decks themselves. Youthberk is the strongest of the trial decks come next set, or the set 6. And Lianorn, it's really if you just like Stoichea and like the aesthetic for it, and are interested in its playstyle for right now, honestly. But still, I think all these 3 are super exciting. I will say I am a bit sad that all 3 of these just get a better form at triple in the main set, as it makes it kind of hard to, say, pick up these starter decks, then especially if you're wanting to play competitively. But with that being said, though, I still think it's a great product for beginners as well, to give them a starting point. and also for some returning players if they want to try to figure out what they might be interested in, and also are willing to spend money on the main set stuff as well. So, also for warning, looks like the main set stuff might be a bit expensive for Vanguard standards, but certainly if not as expensive as something like Yu-Gi-Oh! So, those are kind of my final thoughts on these. I had a lot of fun opening them. Again, I got 3 more coming by mail from 50 cards. It says Tuesday, so in about 4 days, but it'll probably come on Monday. So, oh, actually, I forgot. There's a holiday on Monday, so it will be coming on Tuesday. But, so, I probably won't post on that one just because I already made this video, but stuff you can look forward to is I will hopefully be picking up a pre-release kit and be able to show that off next weekend. I'll be picking that one up on Sunday. No promises though, like the card shop can't promise it for me, but I've been able to pick one up the past few times, so I'm hoping to be able to do that to show that off. And then I'm also going to be getting at least 1 box from the shop to show off in 2 weeks for the release, so look forward to that. And even more exciting, I'm actually opening an entire case that should be coming that Monday or Tuesday at the latest. And I'll ideally be live streaming me opening that to kind of show off all the crazy pulls. So if you're interested in seeing someone live stream a case, want to come chat, definitely check that out. I will be posting updates on all that on my Twitter account, so please go follow that. Link in the description below for updates, especially for that case, as that's going to be something that I don't know when I'll go live that day. It just depends when I get the case and when I am free to do that, as I will have work as well. But again, all updates will be posted to Twitter, so go follow me there. Also, one final note before I sign off. Shout out to my card shop for letting me pick up some promos. My shop doesn't really do tournaments as there isn't a big enough scene for them to be able to distribute promos that way, but I was able to get 4 Pyramid and Katrina. Not too expensive, but still pretty cool. And I also found these Shoutmon Digimon sleeves, as next week is the pre-release event, so I'm going to try to bring a box home to open, and I'm super excited for the cross art deck, so had to pick up these sleeves. I hope for all you new players out here that this video was informative on the new Vanguard trial decks, and I also hope that it was just entertaining to see me unboxing these, as I had a lot of fun opening these. I've been super excited for it, as I said. And if any of you have any requests for other Vanguard related content, especially some more educational ones if you're getting started, please let me know down in the description. I'm more than happy to continue to ramble on about Vanguard, as it has been my favorite game for probably 8 years now, 8 or 9 years now. So, and the whole reason I wanted to make this YouTube channel was to make just a lot of informative content. So I would love to provide that for you all. I just need to know what you all would like to see, what's kind of at the top of your mind, what questions you have. As with these new trial decks out here, I think it's a perfect time to start releasing just kind of explanations to help new players get into Vanguard. With all that being said though, look forward to some more Vanguard gameplay, unboxings in the upcoming weeks, as well as maybe some Digimon, and of course some more Illustrals content, as we are nearing Kickstarter for that as well as the tournament has finally kicked off, the team tournament I'm a part of. So just a lot of fun content, not just Vanguard related, but of a ton of stuff coming up real soon, so look forward to that.